Big quarreling in parliament between the opposition and the government. We have been many problems already, and what is going on now, it ain't easy. The opposition had intention to put no confidence vote in motion. The president prorogued the parliament and let them know about it in a statement. This country needs prayers, Father help us. Oh Lord, I'm praying. This country needs prayers, I'm pleading and I'm begging. This country needs prayers, prayers, prayers to stop all these wrongs and stop all these tears, tears, tears. What? Some politicians could be so scandalous, they don't care a thing about us. They're busy abusing down each other. It's time that they put things in order. I'm calling on all them politicians to sit down and think about this nation. Please try to change this ugly situation. It ain't good for the young generation. This country needs prayers, Father help us. Oh Lord, I'm praying. This country needs prayers, I'm pleading and I'm begging. This country needs prayers, prayers, prayers to stop all these wrongs and stop all these tears, tears, tears. What? Stop the gutter behavior in the town hall, like fighting for mics and breaking down walls. And who like who and who don't want who. Locking out each other won't make things better. Whenever the rain starts falling, this town has a serious flooding. Most councillors sit down quarreling, and the people on the road punishing. This country needs prayers, Father help us. Oh Lord, I'm praying. This country needs prayers, I'm pleading and I'm begging. This country needs prayers, prayers, prayers to stop all these wrongs and stop all these tears, tears, tears. What? I want to know what gives some people the reason to watch the dirty linen in the open. Other people have disagreement, but they don't settle it on the pavement. They're robbing people right inside the church. The take where they post things is getting worse. It ain't fair for people to be working and getting gone down for what they're earning. This country needs prayers, Father help us. Oh Lord, I'm praying. This country needs prayers, I'm pleading and I'm begging. This country needs prayers, prayers, prayers to stop all these wrongs and stop all these tears, tears, tears. What? Settle Rodney's in Crest, get it out the way, and let's join and correct the wrongs of today. And domestic violence, more the list is long. All churches must preach to correct the wrongs. With the suicide rate adding to the list, Father, these and other things, please help us to fix. We don't want this country to get worse, and we must always put this nation first. This country needs prayers, Father, help us. Oh Lord, I'm praying. This country needs prayers, I'm pleading and I'm begging. This country needs prayers, 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 to stop all these wrongs and stop all these tears, tears, tears. What?
Oh, well, good evening to you. Welcome to Politics 101 Monday evening, Monday night for some of you, Monday afternoon for some of us. And we came in there with the music of Winfield James, the late Winfield James, local Calypsonian. Guyanese Calypsonian who passed away a couple of weeks ago, and I've been meaning to make mention of it, but we've been overwhelmed. Dave Martins passed away last week, and we've been talking about him. Winfield James, I had the pleasure of meeting him a few times, quite a jovial fellow, and very serious Calypsonian, and had his own following. People love that. He was a fixture on the local calypso scene, and he was a designer. I think he spent some time in Trinidad. One of his parents, his dad is Trinidadian, his mother is Guyanese, but he considered himself Guyanese. Passed away after a period of illness. May, of course, his soul rest in peace. The country need prayers. The country need prayers. This country need prayers. One of the calypsos that uses that broad brush to chastise our politicians. Professor Gordon Rollier refers to it as social rebuke. One of the roles that the Calypsonian has played, a social rebuke, political rebuke, rebuke of our leaders. This country needs prayers, and Winfield James there did not spare any politician, any political party, all of them. He chastised in that calypso. Welcome to all of you who are joining us. Another Calypsonian passed away last month, and it was brought to my attention only a few days ago. Ayambo. I first saw him in the 90s. I understand he was more of a composer. I know at that time he was composing for Tempest, Camille Goliath from Bedford Wacton, and she, of course, is known as one of our blind Calypsonians, a tremendous voice, tremendous Calypsonian, and Ayambo wrote for her, I was reliably informed, but he himself sang, and I think he won the Calypso crown at Mashramani in 1996. Ayambo. I think is that was his stage name, of course, and is, as they say, his real name Thurins. He was quite a musician, and he taught music. He taught music at various institutions in Guyana, and he passed away last month. And I was searching because I know I have in my archives a calypso by Ayambo. I think the very year that he won the crown, 1996. Today I meant to look for it, but didn't get around to it. But may his soul rest in peace. Ayambo, calypsonian, composer, and musician, music teacher. And of course, we came in with the oi man, Winfield James, who passed away a couple of weeks ago. I think they're having a night of reflections, a wake for him at Transport. I think it's tomorrow night. Somebody sent me a note earlier today. I think the Calypso Association, they're having a night of reflections. That's the new name now. Wake for him at Transport. And I think that is tomorrow night. That's Winfield James. As the Congo people would say, Congo Creole, see them a go away, one by one. See them a go away, one by one. Congo Creole, one by one. Sandra saying Winfield James was my neighbor. Yes, condolences to his family. Congo people say Congo Creole, see them a go away, one by one. Of course, the Christians say everyday souls are passing away. Everyday souls are passing away. The Rastaman say, one bright morning when my work is over, I'll fly away to Zion. One bright morning when my work is over, I'll fly away to Zion. Three aspects of our culture: the Christian aspect, the African spiritual aspect, and of course, the ever-present Rastafarians. Fly away home to Zion. One bright morning when my work is over, I'll fly away home. Fly away and swim back to Africa. It's always been part of the African narrative, the African musical narrative. If I had wings like a dove, I'll fly. If I had wings like a dove, I'll fly. And since I have no wings, I've got to sing. Rest in peace, brothers, and go back to the ancestors and go back to your gods. Good evening to you and welcome to this evening, Politics 101. We're not going back, as the Rasta man said, we are stepping forward. We are forwarding, always forwarding. The Kamala Harris campaign mantra. We're not going back. And that train is moving. Time to get on the Harris train. Train is moving. This train is headed to Mount Zion. And you got to get on that train because history beckons. I said last week and I'm saying it again. African Americans give America its first Black president. It gave America its first Black vice president. And it's poised to give America its first woman president. The train is moving. They're going to stop just a moment. So you got to get on the train, the Kamala Harris train. As I said, there's a time for everything. There's a time to get in there and open up the candidate and what he stands for or she stands for. There's a time for issues. But there's also a time for history making. History making. And this is one such time. I've said here, and I'm sure some of you share my view. I don't share Kamala Harris's political views on a number of issues. I don't. She's the quintessential Democrat, Democratic Party, and she, of course, carries the party line. And the party line is often out of step with the line of its constituents. On the issue of Gaza, for example, the Democratic Party is out of step with its community of color, as they say in America. I don't like that term. People of color. So I'll use community of color. Out of step with Black people and brown people and immigrants and so on. We know all of that. We know all of that. And some of you quite rightly are saying the alternative to Kamala is Trump. And if nothing else, you want to vote for Kamala because of Trump. Well, I'm adding another dimension. Even if you felt that an anti-Trump vote is not enough, here's another reason for voting for Kamala. She's going to make history. If you elect her, she's going to make history. When Obama was elected 16 years ago, the world stopped. And the heartbeat of the world began to beat differently the second after Obama was officially declared a president. The heartbeat of the world started to beat differently because his election took a burden, a big burden off of the backs of African people, Black people, non-white people, because his election made a statement that when the rules are the same and the playing field is as level as it could be, African people do have a chance. Obama's election put to bed once and for all the notion that was coined in the 19th century that African people could not exist in a state of freedom. Obama's election settled historical scores. We moved from dreaming. We moved from dreaming to the reality. When Dr. King, on the eve of his assassination, said, I've been to the mountain top and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but we as a people will get there. He was prophesying. The prophetic aspect of the Black canon, the Black narrative. I've been to the mountaintop and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but we as a people will get there. Dr. King was prophesying, and who better to prophesy than the king himself, the Black king. 40 years later, Obama's election fulfilled King's prophecy. And so, for those of us who are political scientists and political junkies, who today look back at Obama's presidency and said, well, Obama did nothing for Black people. He did nothing to help Black people, and so forth. We are evaluating Obama in the mode of a politics in which all things are equal. And that's okay. But Obama's election for African people was not about political science. It was not about political polls. It was about fulfilling the dream. The dream. When Dr. King first uttered that dream in August of 1963 in Washington, D.C., I have a dream that one day, I have a dream that one day, Obama fulfilled that dream in 2008, 45 years later. So when we analyze Obama not only from a political science standpoint, but we analyze him from the standpoint of history and the fulfillment of history. Obama's election was reparations for Black people. If by reparations we mean repairing the damage that was wrought, the damage that was done by 4 centuries of enslavement, Obama's election was part of repairing that damage. It said to African people, that we are people too. Reverend Jesse Jackson said his famous slogan, I am somebody. Obama is bringing all of that together in 2008. What I'm actually saying here is that we have to develop our own point of analysis of our leaders as we go forth with Kamala. It's not about whether she is charismatic enough. It is not about whether she is exciting enough. It is not about whether we agree with our political stance on issues. For us African people, and it should be for all people, our election takes us to a new plateau, a new understanding of our historical reality. And that's why we should vote for. I hear some of my friends say, I can't vote for the Democrats. I'm going to stay home. I'm going to stay home. And I'm saying to you that you are working against the dream when you stay home. A vote for Kamala is not just a vote for the Democrats. That's for non-black, non-brown people. For brown people, a vote for Kamala is not just a vote for the Democrats. It's a vote for the fulfillment of the reparation that is due to people of African descent. The repairing, that's what reparation is about. You're voting for reparations. We're not going back. We're not going back to plantation. We're not going back to plantation. We are stepping forward. A stepping razor. What's my style? I'm dangerous. Brother Peter Tosh. What's my style? I'm dangerous. We're stepping out and we're stepping forward. And so, where are we in Guyana? We are also not going back in Guyana. The conversation in Guyana is about whether some or one of our Black leaders or leader is worthy of becoming president. And all that political science thing. We are at a pivotal point in our history. We're at a pivotal point in our history. We are at a point where the state in Guyana now has the capacity for reparations. And it's a cruel aspect of our history that for the last 32 years, "27 of those years, the children of Africa have been left out of the governance of our country. For the last 32 years, 27 of those years, the children of Africa have been made to carry the burden, have been the objects and the subjects of the politics of retribution, the politics of spite, the politics of settling scores. I'm talking it real tonight. For the Indian Guyanese elites in the PPP, Burnham did them a terrible wrong. He denied them power, so they say. And so when they put their hands on power in 1992, their policies and their politics were geared and continue to be geared to punishing those who look like Burnham for what they consider to be the sins of Burnham. That has been the reality of the politics of the last 32 years minus 5. You see, in politics as in life, there's what we call the text, and there is the subtext. The text is that since 1992, the PPP has won all the elections save for the one in 2015. That is the text. The subtext is that since 1992, the PPP, using the guise of electoral victory to chastise and to beat up on African people as part of its politics of revenge. Am I saying that the PPP has not done other things? Of course, they've done other things. But the subtext, what has driven their politics, is the need for revenge. And so, therefore, we are at this pivotal point where, after 3 decades of the politics of revenge, that we have got to open up the gates and let all of God's children, including his blackest children, into the halls of power. We have no other choice. History beckons that, try as they may, slavery cannot come back to Guyana, must not come back to Guyana. In any guise. And so it's time to put an end to the politics of revenge that masquerades as democratic politics. There's nothing democratic about shutting out half of the population from the practice of decision making because of their skin color. The winner-take-all system in spirit allows for a modicum of inclusion. You know, in Parliament, you get the deputy speakership. If you're the opposition, you get to ask some questions, you get to bring some bills, you get a few motions, you get to chair sectoral committees. That's inclusion in spirit, not in letter, because at the end of the day, the majority party carries the day. But even that little letter of inclusion has been smashed by this government, by this party in government. There is nothing democratic about one party with one seat majority making all the decisions about how you spend $1.2 trillion and more. Absolutely nothing democratic. And so we are at this point where we have to put a stop to it. And so therefore, our evaluation of the politics, including the leaders and the parties, must undergo some degree of adjustment. If we analyze the PNC and the AFC and the WPA using political science, we will find a lot of faults with them. A lot of faults. They held power for 5 years. And if we were to analyze the way they use that power, we will find a lot of faults with them. And we could conclude that they're going to do the same thing the next time around. And so therefore, we opt out of the political process. Or God forbid, we got down on our knees and crawl behind our oppressors. I am pleading that we do not use that traditional mode of assessment, that we construct a mode of assessment that is consistent with where we are now politically. The PPP makes no bones about what it intends to do going forward. It intends to dominate our politics and our society. And you don't dominate birds, you dominate people. And the people your domination targets most are those who did not vote for you. Too many African blood has been shed. Too much African blood has been shed. Too much tears has been shed. Too many opposition supporters, black and non-black, have been targeted and beaten up by this government. The denial of wages, the denial of a living wage, the denial of the right to live is palpable. And so our assessment and our evaluation of our parties and our leadership that will take us into the electoral contest must undergo an adjustment. I am not asking you to deny the faults of our parties and our leaders. Oh no, I am not asking you to engage in denial. To do so would be to commit political suicide. What I'm asking you to do, as I'm asking Black Americans to do in America, is to think inwards first before you go outwards. You see, if you think outwards first, you get hooked on what is bad about your house, your leaders. If you go inwards, you notice first the scars. You notice how time has ravaged the Black political body, the opposition political body. And when you see those scars, your analysis must undergo some change. Go inwards first. And if you go inwards and you examine the scars of bondage, to quote AUC and Chaiko Guyana, the scars of bondage, then you do not deny the faults of the PNC and the ASC and the WPA, but you put them in context. The context is created by the scars of bondage. Politicians like to make themselves fools. Winfield James said this country needs prayers because all of them full of nonsense. Oh yes, I know that. I've been hanging out with them for 50 odd years. But in Guyana today, it's not normal politics. It's the politics of death that is roaming the halls of power. Economic death, social death, political death, and in some respects, actual death. Death is normative. Death is inevitable. Death is real. But premature death, forced death, is not normative. It's not real and should not be condoned. I'm laying out tonight a new basis for our evaluation of our political reality. And I think I am part part of a group that is best poised to make the plea I'm making. Why do I say that? I have opposed openly. I'm part of a group, small group, that has opposed every government in post-colonial Guyana. The old PNC government, you all know the depth of my opposition and others in our party, the WPA. When the PPP came to power, we opposed them, and we continue to do so today. And some of us had the courage to say to the coalition government, which was not an evil government, which was not a brazen government, which was not a dictatorial government, but they made mistakes. And some of us said to them, you are making mistakes in real time. And it is because we have opposed and stood up against all of these governments that I think we are well poised and placed to ask for an alternative assessment of the PNC, the AFC, and the WPA as we move into this election. And I'm saying those are the three parties on the opposition side that are reflecting in varying degrees the narratives of those in the opposition. Polls will say who's doing it 50% and 20% and 30%. The polls will take care of that. But you have to be dishonest if you walk the halls of the opposition, the communities of the opposition, and do not recognize that these three political formations in varying degrees represent the thought process, represents the cries, represent the pain, represent the promise of freedom in our community. And that's a good thing. It shows that our opposition community is not a monolith. Some of us hear the cries of our people more than others. Some of us cry with our people more than others. Some of us may not cry with our people, but it doesn't mean that we are oblivious to the cries of our people. All of us are involved, says Martin Carter, because all of us are consumed. And so I'm laying out a new assessment, a different assessment of our politics. An assessment that says, in the words of Dr. King, I've been to the mountaintop and I've seen the promised land. And I know that our people will get there. We must not bring the bar too low so that our leaders can just tiptoe over. That's not what I'm asking. I'm asking for the bar to be kept high. But I'm saying that we have to get some props to help our leaders over the bar. Don't lower the bar. It can't be, I ain't going with Nigel Hughes because he got some conflict of interest. I ain't going with Norton because he ain't presidential. I ain't going with David Hines because he's too radical. It can't be that. That's politics as usual. We have to go beyond the politics of usual. The usual politics. And we have to create a new construct. This is about the survival of the nations and ultimately the survival of the nation. Survival of black people around the line. And you can't deal with that with politics as usual. That is what they want us to do. So, you can't look at the teachers and the denial of the right to life, because that's what they have done to our teachers. They've denied them the right to life because they've denied them a living wage. The denial was done by the government, co-signed by President Light. We should not go light on President Light, but we ought to recognize that this is not the handiwork of President Light. It is the handiwork of President Ali and Barrett and Manik Chan. It's their handiwork. The denial of the right to a living wage and ultimately the right to life. What Light has done is that he has co-signed it. A grievous act of omission, a grievous act of collusion on the part of the president of the Guyana Teachers Union. But let us not lose sight that it's the handiwork of that government that is intent on punishing and taking revenge on the darkest, the blackest among us because of what they consider to be the crimes committed against them by Forbes Burnham. And if you understand that, then you have to change the way you assess where we are. We have to cut out the nonsense, opposition supporters. We have to cut out the nonsense, black people. And we have to embrace something fresh. I still hear some people talking about who bring what to the table and who don't bring what to the table. And these are people who not talk about constructing a table. And these are not people who are recognizing that we are not at the table. 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 Yet we say, I wonder what WPA bring to the table. We are not at the table. I wonder what Nigel Hughes and the ASC bring to the table. We are not at the table. I wonder, Aubrey Norton can lead the table. We are not at the table. Get that in your heads. Opposition supporters, black people, we are not at the table. You all understand the nonsense that we black people sometimes talk, and sometimes our leaders encourage it? I wonder what he bring to the table. I wonder what they bring. What's table? We first of all have to construct a table. A table that we can climb on and use that as the stepping stone to the mountaintop, the real table. And the table we construct must be a table that is able to carry with it the aspirations of all of the opposition supporters and ultimately all of our country. We are in the process of constructing that table that will be the stepping stone to the real table. And we as leaders, we as party members, we as supporters of the opposition, we have got to orient our thinking based on the realities we face. And the realities we face are grim. Grim. Every single vote counts. Every single person who aligns himself or herself with the opposition counts. The other side is strategizing as we speak. They're strategizing in the public, they're strategizing in the private. And we have got to strategize in the public and in private. Think differently. Our thought process must be guided by a sense of camaraderie, not confrontation. Comrades disagree. Comrades will disagree. But the camaraderie must be what should guide us. In recent times, we've been disagreeing in the most uncomradely way. We've got to stop it. We've got to stop it. You see, when we have finished busting up one another, it's hard to go back and say to our supporters, I was just playing politics. Let's all get together now. You see, after you bust up one another, you can't go back to people and say, I bust up my comrade because I disagree with him. Let's all come back together. I do have policy differences with Norton and Hughes. Maybe ideological differences. I do have differences of approach from Norton and Hughes. I do have tactical differences with Aubrey and Nigel. But I am not prepared to allow those tactical differences, those policy differences, to lead to a breach in relations, to lead to me busting up them. That is the lesson that we've got to learn here. How do we construct an environment in which we showcase our differences in approach, our differences in policies, but we do so within the context of camaraderie, within the context. What Hillary Clinton said last week, it still takes a village. How do we disagree without breaking up the village? We got to have a table to climb up on to get to the real table. We have to turn our differences into diversity. The WPA has asked me to be its standard bearer at the election, and I have agreed. Not because I have some grand ambition. God knows that He has blessed me with more than was expected. when I came into this world in the midst of poverty in a village. And so I don't ask God for much more than he's prepared to give. But I have answered the call of my party to get in to this electoral race in order to help us to construct a table that we can climb on to get to sit at the real table. There are some things I say because I can say them, and I don't play politics when I say them. And I'm painfully conscious that my other brother leaders, there are some things they will not say, maybe cannot say. There are some things that they will say and can say that I cannot say. At the end of the day, if all of us are saying something that is relevant to the pains of our people, to the aspirations of our people, that is what is important. I'm old enough to remember that 1988 speech at the Democratic National Convention by Jesse Jackson, when he talked about America being a quilt. I remember being moved to tears, not just by his eloquence, but by his demonstration of what it means to build diversity out of difference. That is what we need on the opposition side. A diverse quilt. We can compete in terms of ideas. The concourse of ideas is not bad. We can compete in terms of our approaches. But the ultimate competition is against those who hold our country at ransom and who hold the state of Guyana in their hands and are destroying our people and our country. That's what the real competition is about. That's who we ultimately must compete against. We compete in the opposition side in order to complete our diversity. When the history of this time is written, if I can direct it, I want it to say that David Hinds and the Working People's Alliance made a plea for a diverse opposition arising out of our differences, and recognizing that in this time, we need a new political approach. We need a new political praxis. We need a new political thinking that will see us through. My mentor, one of them, but the one who mentored me the most, without saying I am your mentor. In 1953, when the white people get him vexed, he said, this confounded nonsense must stop. And the time has come for this confounded nonsense in Guyana to stop. And if we're going to stop it, we have to do it with sense, we got to do it with dignity, and we have to do it in unity. In unity, not a blind unity, but a unity in motion, unity in action, a unity that respects our diversity. And so we are moving on. We are moving on with purpose, and we are laying before you something to think about and to begin to put in practice now. We're not going back, says Sister Kamala. We're not going back, Sister Kamala says. Sister Kamala said, we're not going back. The Rasta man said, we're going forward. We're pressing on. And we want every single one of you on board. Every one of you, we want on board. Every vote counts. Even if you don't have the right to vote, you're too young, you're still part of the struggle. You're still part of the building of this table that we will step on in order to get to the promised land. Dr. King said, I've been to the mountaintop and I've seen the promised land. He said he may not get there, but as a people, he knows we will get there. I want to be there. When the roll is called up yonder, I want to be there. And I want all of you to be there in our numbers. In our numbers. To get our rightful place at the table that we help to carve with our own hands and our minds, our imagination. And that table is now stolen away from us. And we must build our own table to step on so that we can get to our rightful place at that table. I love you all because I must. Love is not something you wish. Love is not something you buy in the shop. Love is something that comes from deep within your belly. From deep within your soul. I love you all because it is your love, your collective love, your individual love that have made all things possible, guided by your gods, guided by your ancestors, guided by your own consciousness. we're going to do it together in unity.